Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Future of Space. I'm your host, Daniel Fox. Our guest today is Naeem. Naeem is an IBM Distinguished Engineer and its Chief Technology Officer, Space Tech. He's also a Board of Technical Advisor for Explore Mars. Naeem, welcome to the Future of Space.
Thank you so much, Daniel, for having me on the show.
Now, before we go into the usual two questions that I ask every guest, you have something a little bit obvious, and I have to ask. The Absolutely Not t-shirt that you have right now, can you share with us what's the story behind that?
Yes, I mean, basically, it's more of a philosophical thing. It's about the absolutely not to all the oppression which happens in the world. So basically, it's saying absolutely not. That's the whole message behind this. Yeah.
Excellent. So is that something that recently came out, or it's been going on and people just need to know about it?
Yes, this recently happened in Pakistan, and so I think I'll let people go and look on the Twitter and search for it. But it's our there's a character called Imran Khan. He's our favorite leader. It's about him. Yeah.
Excellent. We'll make sure that we put the kind of the feed in the description so people can have a look at it and they can start following it on their feed. Now, Naeem, can you share with us, for you, what are 3 words that capture the essence of space?
That's a great question. I think the first word definitely is divine. Like there has to be someone who created this. The second word is it's majestic. If you look up, your eyes get tired and it comes down. Your gazes. So, and the third is mesmerizing. It just captures you right when you're looking, especially if you get the opportunity to look at the Milky Way. If you happen to be in the dark skies, yeah, that is amazing.
Yeah, Naeem, there's something truly majestic about watching. I mean, there's something so visceral about witnessing a night sky saturated with stars in the middle of the wilderness and having the scale of it and the Milky Way. I think that there's even though that you can recreate the sky at night in a planetarium or virtually, I mean, it's magnificent. It's beauty. It's pretty, but there's a physicality that's missing that you cannot experience unless you are physically there under the majestic and grand scale of the night sky. Would you agree?
Totally, and especially when I think a decade ago when I got the opportunity to look at Saturn through the telescope, that was mesmerizing, right? You're looking at this thing, the ring, and when you see these pictures from the NASA's Cassini, right, it shows you the scale of the rings of Saturn, right? And yes, absolutely, it's amazing.
Now, I think that there's more of a story there because I believe that you grew up. I think that you grew up maybe with witnessing that. So we're going to come back to that. But before we do, could you share? I mean, you work for IBM. It's a world of technology. But beyond the technology, beyond the science that space is going to bring to us, all these new innovations are going to come along. What do you think is the human story of going to space?
So I think the first thing which is very which is built into us is the curiosity. We are very curious, right? Beings. So it's like we just discussed when we look at the sky at night, right? Those typical questions: Are we alone? Like, what's out there? Like, and I mean, it's just a curiosity to go and explore. And when you see these pictures coming from these spacecrafts looking back at the Earth, when the Mars rover, it shows you are just a dot, a tiny dot, with 6+7 billion people, or you're a tiny dot from Saturn. So you wonder if we are just a dot and we are just a solar system, and solar system is just one dot in our Milky Way, in our galaxy, and we have billions of galaxies, right? So that is like, what is out there? I mean, what else is there? Is there more intelligent life than us? So from our beliefs, the human is the most intelligent living being. But what's out there and how do they communicate and all those things? I mean, I think those are the things which are very fascinating.
I mean, it would be a big waste of space and resources, right? If we were the only one. I mean, the universe has a, not that I want to say that it has a personality and and it's an entity, but it's a living organism in the same way that the planet is, or and all these are part of a system. And from my perspective, I believe that the planet now, life on Earth went from single cell to multi-cell, and now life is about to go from single planet in our universe to multi-planet. And in the evolution, when it went from single to multiple, it created, there was an explosion on evolution, the Cambrian period. And I do believe that now we're about to see an explosion because there's a quantum leap in evolution that we're about to take, that massive step. This is a massive step that we're about to take. It's just going to create this chain event of awareness, of innovation. And it's the beginning of a really long journey. Would you agree?
Totally agree. And and like you mentioned, technology is going to play a big role in that, right? Because it's going to build a whole new ecosystem. It's like building a new city, right? And city has many aspects to it. And so, humans going into another planet, whether it's Mars or other planets beyond. But and I think this will be a huge step, and that's why I am like even on this screen, I'm always watching Starship. What's happening right next. I'm keeping a very close eye on what's going to happen in Starship. So, yep, it's going to be a huge moment.
Now, I'm kind of curious about your own journey. Now you work at IBM. Like, did you grow up as a little, Naeem as a kid, growing up under a night sky, or were you a city boy and then you got to connect with the space? So, what is the Naeem story of getting to where you are today?
So, in simple words, I just cannot do one thing. I have to be doing like 10 different things at the same time, and all these things. So, growing up back home in where I'm originally from, Pakistan, we in summer it's very common for people to just sleep on the roof. We have because it's so hot and it's dark skies. So whenever we are laying down at night and just looking up, I mean, you don't have any cell phones, you have nothing. You're just laying down, looking up, and you see these stars and shooting stars and stuff, and you wonder what is there. At that time, we didn't have any technology or telescopes, but it was always curious. So when I came to IBM after finishing my school, everything, I got the opportunity to work at NASA, FDL, and SETI Institute. And from there, I always wanted, loved space, but that gave me an opportunity to see what I can do in space. So I don't have like the aerospace background. I'm a computer scientist, but I figured out that as a programmer, as an architect, there is still a lot we can be done in the space industry, and that's how I came into space.
Now, I think that there's a parallel to be made between your own journey and our own journey with space, because you come from Pakistan. I'm pretty sure that it's not a general belief that someone can come from Pakistan and then end up at NASA. I mean, most of the boys over there must be thinking, "Oh, this is a world that's never accessible or never possible to me." And here you are now, a witness, a result of that chance that you took. And now we're looking at space. A lot of people look at space in the same way. We're looking up, it's like, oh no, this is impossible. Like, how can we achieve this? And a lot of people are saying, well, let's just take the first step and see where it takes us. How for the ones out there who want to connect to that journey of reaching the impossible, achieving the impossible, for you, what was the steps that you took or that energy that you found to dream of the impossible and achieve it?
No, that's a great question. So I think first of all, you should have an idea. What's your destination? What's your end goal? You should always have that idea. And as you progress in life, your end goals sometimes they keep on changing, right? You have different interests. But once you know what your target is, then you take one step at a time. And it's a journey. It doesn't happen in a day. I mean, I started this almost like I would say 7, 8 years ago. And at that point, I knew I would get here one day, but I never knew that it will go this far. But just one step at a time, right? So I think, uh, and in today's world where information is available just with at one click, everything is available, and across the globe, it's available. So I see that there is no excuse for anyone to think that it is not achievable, right? You might not be able to, let's say, work at NASA or ESA, but at least you can gain the knowledge, right? Because knowledge is freely available now. So I think that is a huge step. Just go for what you're looking for, and you will of course have to work hard and take one step at a time.
Now, a lot of people that I interview, when they grew up, their parents or the environment in which they grew up was either a super positive influence in where they supported and they encouraged, and then they were part of that equation, and where they are today, or they were more of they became who they were as a as a answer to an opposition to what their family was. Was your family really supportive when you grew up and where you wanted to go?
So in general, for education, very supportive, right? That's the top priority. But I mean, it's hard for them to see at where you will land, which vertical industries. But in general, for education, very very supportive. Yes.
And do you still keep in touch with the Pakistan world and with the space? Because I believe, like many of the other countries now, the space agencies I was hearing countries that you would not think have their space agencies now have a space agency. So are you involved and connected with Pakistan about their space agency?
So I am connected with the people and the academia over there, but this is one of the reasons why we have so many challenges. So to go look at, but yeah, there's no shortage of talent, and you're absolutely right that many countries have now space programs, and two agencies which really surprised me. One is the Australian Space Agency, and one is the UAE. That how far they have come along in such a short time. But if you look around, almost every country is aspiring to put something in space.
And what is IBM? So then let's circle back to your work at IBM. You're the the CTO of Space Tech. What is that position at IBM? Are you leading the vision of IBM? Was there a space vision before you started? Can you share with us a little bit of that space culture at IBM?
Sure. So IBM in general, we have a long history with space. I mean, if you remember the Apollo missions, back in we were not there, but in the 60s, right? IBM played a critical role. We had 4,000 IBMers working with NASA on those missions, and their flight director said that without IBM we couldn't have put men on the moon. So IBM has always been instrumental. We worked on the space shuttle, on the Hubble telescope. So it's in our DNA. Innovation is in the last few years, and now because of all this commercialization which has happened in the industry, I think I just said it's time to reignite that passion inside. And so yes, I lead the as a CTO, I lead the vision for IBM Space, and we have done some interesting. We can talk about some interesting projects which we have done in last couple of years, and the we'll talk about that CubeSat which we launched last 2 months ago in May. Yeah.
So, what are some of the projects that you can talk about? I'm pretty sure there are a lot of things right now on your desk that are top secret, and we want to make sure that competitors don't talk about it. But what are some of the projects that you can share with the audience?
So the first one we did was the DNA. So there is a DNA sequencing which happens on space station, and we are interested in edge computing in space. So that was our first project where we worked with the ISS National Labs and NASA to perform that whole sequencing analysis of data right at the space station. The whole process used to take around like 4 to 6 weeks, and we minimized that to less than 12 hours because we are doing all the computation on space station. And at the end of when the work is done, it generates a report which tells you if they found any microbes on the surface of the space station. So that was our the first project to work with NASA ISL for edge computing. We have done some work with the blockchain. We worked with the on the space situational awareness and space debris. We open sourced the code to look for conjunction search, and you probably know it's a very hot topic, space debris. And I work very closely, with our friend here because I'm in Austin. He's in UT Austin, right, Mariba? So we have worked very closely, and so that's one area. Then we worked on the this CubeSat mission, which we call Endurance, and the whole purpose of this mission was to democratize access to space. So, and there's a story. So when we started on this journey more than a year ago, I mean, again, like I don't have the background, so we thought, me and my colleagues, we have a 3D printer. We will print 3D. We will print 3D, the CubeSat. We will put a Raspberry Pi, put some solar panels, and we'll call NASA and say, you know what, please put this up in the orbit for us, and we're good to go. But there's a huge list of things you have to go through from logistics, and there's a lot of approvals you have to go through. So we partnered with Endurosat, and we said, okay, you guys, because what we have realized that space is a team sport. You cannot do everything by yourself. So we said, okay, you guys are expert in building CubeSat. You do the hardware aspect. We will take care of all the software. So we worked together, and on May 25th, we launched on SpaceX. And the main purpose is that it is accessible for every kid on the planet. So any school in the world who wants to push their code to space, we will help them do that. That was the whole purpose of it.
And I know that in your description, and IBM also is involved into quantum. I'm not too sure if it's quantum computing or quantum system, but are you in a capacity to explain a little bit more what is that next evolutionary milestone in terms of computing?
Yes, so quantum computing it's like a Godzilla in front of what the computing we have today, the traditional computing. Because if you look at your traditional compute, you have ones and zeros, and you have this basically in serial, your instructions are happening, and you have billions of transistors, right, in a chip. Even though it seems like what we are doing right now, we are doing video conference, everything looks very smooth, but instructions are going one by one. But it just happens to be happening so fast, and because you have so many transistors. Now with quantum computing, you have 0, 1, and a state between 0 and 1, which is almost infinite minus 1. And then all these instructions can happen at once in parallel. So the amount of compute and the problems it will solve from optimization, whether it's financial sector or pharmaceutical, and definitely in space, it's just mind-boggling what it will do, what it will able to do, what supercomputers can do, which takes maybe weeks. This will take literally minutes to beat those supercomputers. So I mean, this is a thing for our next generation is coming up to start learning now. If you are in a kid in a high school which is starting, I would highly recommend get on quantum computing and start learning. It's a different way of thinking and programming, so it's very important.
When you were saying about it's you have the zero and you have one and then you have the in between, what came to my mind was context. In technology, you have data, but then data is nothing without the context. It's the stuff that is around that can be really quantified. And that's what brings a certain richness to life. In music, you have notes. The notes they're clear, they're black and white, but it's the way that you play with them, it's what you do in between. And now I just had this moment of realization when you said that, the richness and the beauty of maybe the next evolution of computing, it's going to be in the in between, and in the possibilities that can go everywhere. Because I think that for some time we've been reducing the richness of life, trying to reduce the uncertainty and saying that everything can be transformed into lines of code. But at the same time, I think that we took out the human experience, the human, what humans bring to the value. But now, and when you said that, I had this opening where quantum might bring back this sense of richness to life, because it opens up in all these possibilities that you just don't know until they happen. Am I kind of close, or am I like totally off track?
No, you're totally close. And I mean, if you look at the human brain, right, and look at the neurons inside, right, and look how the human brain works, and sometimes the thoughts you get, and the, if you see dreams, right, the things which happens in the dream, and sometimes you see a dream within a dream, like all those parallel things happening, the complexity and things which probably happened, like, I don't know, 20 years ago, it just pops up, right? That's amazing, right? So like you said very well, right? There is more than black and white. There is a lot in between, 0 and 1. And that's what quantum will expose. We are still maybe 5, 7 years away, but I think the next decade of 2030s, it's going to be totally different.
Now, what you just said is a great segue to the question that I had in the back of my mind. When you started, like, you are where you are today, like you're in that well, let's hypothetically, visualize a timeline. There was a beginning where you are today, and then there's going to be a future. There is so much that is coming that we don't necessarily know, because we're seeing the future through the lens of today. But when you started, do you think that where you are today was seen as impossible back in that time when you started?
Definitely. I mean, when we started, this concept of where I can pick a handheld device and talk to someone back home, impossible. I mean, I will tell you, it's that backwards that back home in most of the Asian countries at that time, you will have to call the operator and say, I want to book a call to call somebody in Europe or America for 3 minutes. They will give you a 3 minute call, and they will do something magic, and then they will call you and say, you know what, you're about to go live. And then you do that, right? And now if you tell that generation, you know what, I can just click a button and we can have a discussion like this. I mean, so yeah, that's amazing. And what's the future of what this whole concept of VR and AR and metaverse, right? And connecting the physical and the virtual worlds together. I just imagine the possibilities.
It's one of the, when I watch a science fiction movie about the future, whether it's Star Wars, Star Trek, or any other, we have the capacity to imagine the future on these itemized, products. Like, oh, in the future, we're going to be able to travel at light speed, and we're going to have a spaceship. But we singularize that technology and don't apply it to that ecosystem. So we see a future where, okay, they're traveling at light speed, but then their sense of communication, or the way that they eat, is just still kind of like almost caveman-ish. Like, evolution is not seen as a holistic evolution. Rather, then there's like, oh, we're gonna have these spaceships, but other things are not going to be possible. And I think that one of the things, if we look at today's future, with the smartphones, with the advance of biotechnology, biology, health wise. I mean, if you had asked someone 100 years ago what the future would be like today, probably 99% of the technology that we have today, they would have never even thought about it, because it's just so foreign, right? So looking at the future, even from where you're sitting at IBM, it must be really exciting to think of the future. Are you?
Definitely. I mean, like you said, right? I mean, sometimes what happens, there is this big leap, which is like, it certainly is it jumps, right? It's not like a linear progression. It just goes from 10 to 50. And you have no idea how that happened, right? I think that's what quantum computing is going to do in the next decade. That all of a sudden it's going to just jump from here to there, and that will automatically create or generate a new ecosystem of things. And the generation who will work on that will be a totally different mindset and generation 15, 20 years from now. Right? Every generation is totally different, have different capabilities. So I mean, if you just look at the if you look at kids today, and when look at my if I look at my niece and nephews, and I'm glad when my kids were growing up, we didn't have cell phones, but now, right, and the kid, like 3-year-old kid, they know exactly what to do with cell phone, and they swipe, and if something is not moving, they know that the parent just gave them a dummy something, it's not moving, right? How did they just learn all these things, right? It's just like a next generation chip in their mind, right? And the kids who will come 10 years from now will be primed for quantum to understand and do, and there will be a whole new set of innovations at that time.
Now, one more little thing about quantum, because you made me think of something. In nature, in the wilderness and nature, my background is in nature, there's always the notion of you cannot predict. There's always an element of chaos and unpredictability. This is often where evolution happens. You can repeat something over and over again, but there's always one thing that's going to, at one point, something else is going to happen. Is quantum bringing that element of chaos into the innovation?
Big time. I mean, for example, the encryption you have today, to break that encryption, supercomputers will take a very, very long time to break encryption. Quantum can do that in seconds. Now, that is like mind boggling. A supercomputer, which can take several months to break an encryption. Now, what it does is the whole industry is now thinking, okay, let's say in 5-10 years, quantum will be here. So we have to start thinking about how to, quantum safe our encryption. And the companies are already working on that now to protect, because if you break an encryption, our whole world runs on mobile now. Your banking, your financial, everything. So if somebody breaks your encryption, the whole world is in big, big trouble. So that's just one example that how it's gonna change things. Yep.
I'm really curious to see how the world, our future, is going to evolve, because it's always, every technology that we find, there's an intent that was envisioned to it, and then there's an unintended consequence, the use of it, and then there's also bad actors that try to use it, and you're constantly playing of each other. I mean, right now, even crypto, people thought crypto would be, oh my god, it will be safe, everything is going to be perfectly fine, and then scammers are coming and doing their things much faster than we anticipated them. And realistically, it's going to be the same thing for quantum. As we create the technology with these usage in mind, there's going to be an entire life that's going to create of its own. At IBM, are you guys planning with that in mind?
So can you say in particular, like just a little bit more specific?
So, knowing that the technology that you're working on is developed with one intent in particular, do you anticipate also that the technology will have different usage that then at that point might become a problem that you have to deal with?
All the time. And a recent example is which people can relate to now is, so in this last decade, you heard a lot about machine learning, AI, deep learning, all this fake stuff which is being created. So we started with AI. If you remember the Jeopardy, where IBM Watson, right? So we started with AI. We did a lot of innovations, but soon we realized that it started to drift for many other negative things the world is doing. So immediately we came up with the ethical AI message. And now almost every corporate in the world have an ethical AI. Basically what it means is you have to explain. You have to explain what this AI model is doing. It's not biased, it's transparent, it's trustworthy, right? What is your input? What's your output? How you're tweaking things in between. So yeah, so you started with one thing, innovation, and you always start with that. You want to, as engineers, you want to build something cool. But then when it goes into the market, into the hands of business, it changes, right? And then because now it's wide open and business have a different perspective in mind than the engineers. But then you always, if you come back and tweak it to make sure, it's ethical, and whatever you believe in your company or it lines up with that, then it should be fine. I'm very sure that quantum and other technologies will have the same fit going forward. Yeah.
Now we talk often about AI becoming sentient. There was some recent news about one of the Google employee who came out with the public. My the opinion that I have is often it's too easy to compare intelligence when we ask AI to do something. I think that what is more telling is what AI doesn't it does when it's not asked to perform. Because that I think that's really the awareness and the consciousness or the sentience of a being is when you're not performing something that you're supposed to be doing, what is your mind going? That is that sense of like, I'm off script right now and my mind is going into these places that is like it wasn't intended for. And do you think that when we talk about sentient computer, there's going to be that place where they have a life on their own, they're capable of going off script, and this is where maybe we're going to have new discoveries that we didn't plan? I mean, you work with Watson. What is your general opinion on that?
So there is always, I mean, it's like a spectrum, right? It's like there is always areas where you say, okay, I told you go and do something. Like for example, the manufacturing of cars, the robots building the cars. Think about, I don't know, 50, 60, 70 years ago when those robots came and humans were building the car. They had the same feeling. This robot, right? First of all, the job security aspect, always, that's a natural thing. But then what if this robot start doing something else? I'm sure it did some crazy things in the beginning, but over time, you put the guardrails, the system gets more intelligent in terms of how you program it, and you put the boundaries around it. And now these robots, they build most of the cars all over the globe, right? So it all comes down to what your principles are as a software development entity institution, right? Because yes, it's very possible that it can have its own mind because there is tremendous amount of data being produced at every level. So you feed this data to a machine, and if you don't check on it, if you don't have control, yeah, it's going to spit out different kinds of things. Now the next step is, are you blindly trusting all of that information, or are you putting some rules and regulations in front of it? So I think it's probably a evolving process where you're learning. But I can tell you that in very critical and sensitive areas, they are there to augment you. They're not there to make decision for you, and this will improve over time.
I totally agree with you, Naeem, on this understanding that humans and technology are evolving together. And as technology is evolving, we are evolving and bring different things to the table. And I hear more and more the understanding and the belief that technology is there to enhance our own humanity and to work with our humanity, as opposed to replace the humans, seeing the humans just as a, yes, there are some places that we shouldn't be spending energy over there. When in terms of, in times of computation on things that our brain is not necessarily the fastest, yes, obviously go over there, but we have something to bring to the table. And even in the future, I believe that we will always have something to bring to the table. And the best of us will come when we work with the technology and the technology allows the humanity to be in there. Is that a vision that you also share?
Totally agree. I mean, and it also helps us to grow as humans, right? Because it's enabling, it's making us think the things which we didn't think before. For example, like again, just going back to the quantum, right? So maybe there were very, very hard problems which people were like, okay, we don't have the capacity to solve this because we don't have the compute today or hardware to tackle with that, right? Maybe quantum. For example, I really want to create a digital twin of Earth. Now, if you think about it, I mean, that is like a gigantic task. I mean, Earth is huge, right? Which means that you have sensors almost every corner of the globe, and it's giving you data, and it's almost real time that you can visualize the digital aspect of Earth. And in Earth, we have billions of different things. I mean, right, species and all other things. So I mean, think about this. Maybe today it looks like very, very. It's not possible. We can do maybe certain pieces or small areas, but not the whole globe. But maybe 20 years from now, this computer will let you do that.
It's going to demand a lot of computer power, but I'm pretty sure that you're working on that. You mentioned that you have children. Are you? I mean, we have big issues that we have to take care. Your T-shirt absolutely not is a statement to some of the things that are going on. It would be naive and in denial to say that our world has no problem and our future is bright independently what we do. But having children, do you believe in the future that they're growing in right now and our capacity to make the best of it?
The thing is, I mean, it's part of human life. The ups and downs, the good and bad, it will always be there. It started that way, it's going to end that way, right? So and I think humans are very resilient. If you look what we all went through this pandemic last 3 years, right? How we all evolved, right? To now we are working from home and we have this. If you would have asked us 3 years ago, maybe not. We don't have that choice to do this work every day through these web conferences to do our work. But we all evolved, right? So I think the humans, I mean, they are capable of, as long as you are positive to change and you're accepting the change and adjusting, you will be fine. And today the world is moving very, very fast. There is so much information, but the core is you need to have principles, because they will never change no matter what technology comes. You need to have principles and you need to have a purpose of life, that why I'm doing this. You need to ask this question every single day when you wake up and you're working on a project, and you're like, why I'm doing this. Because it happens many times. I started on a project with a very with a very positive and sincere intention to do something good, but over time, it's humans, your intention changes, because now you have other factors involved, and now you started for a noble cause, and now you have some other things attached to it. So that's why you have to ask yourself, and that's why I teach my kids, you have to ask yourself every day, why am I doing this? What was the purpose? It's the same which I started with. I think if we keep a check on that, I think we should be fine.
I mean, it's where do you put that energy? I mean, even a plant, if you don't have a sun or the light that kind of grows in all the different directions as opposed to have a destination. You were talking about resilience, and for me, this is one of the things that I admire about, and it's part of our success as a species, is that we are extremely resilient every time. And I think that the success of the human species has been that every limitation or the hardship of our evolution has brought something better for us. And every time that we think that we've hit the roof, we reassess how we want to move forward, and then we figure out how to go beyond. Because nature, there's a certain, I say that nature is organized chaos, and that there's a certain limitation to it. Nature didn't give us a roof over our heads. We built that roof, but nature didn't give us clothes. We're the ones who created those clothes. So we're always taking what nature is giving us, and we're adding the layers and building on top of it, and pushing those geographical boundaries is part of that. You're born in one place, but you figure out how to go to new places. And now we were born on this planet, and we're about to take life to new places. And I certainly believe that we're about to give Earth the biggest gift by taking its life to new, because life doesn't want to be limited to, earlier we were talking about the scale and the size of the universe. Life, it's for the benefit of life trying to figure out how to extend its survival by going above where it started. So there's an evolutionary step that we're about to take. And I think that, that goal that is driving us, that you're teaching your children, is aligned to that. Am I correct?
Yes, exactly. And going back to the nature thing, right? I mean, one thing which I realized a few years ago, which I never thought about it. I mean, look at the tree. A tree is, it has limbs and and branches, and it's solid. And from there, a soft leaf comes. A leaf becomes a flower, and a flower becomes a fruit. I mean, think about it. So think about, you have a wood chair sitting here, and a fruit is going to emerge out of it. Or when you, in a drought, you bury a seed, a raindrop comes, and that seed, which is very, like, it has, seems like it has no power, a plant, it basically breaks the ground and it pops up, right? So those amazing things, like, that is what's the amazing part of, when we look at the nature and the life, and everything around us, how resilient things are, and how they come back from the dead and come back to life, and how the life is given, right? All these things. Yep, this is just amazing.
The reciprocity with our world and our relationship. If we, I mean, even ourselves, like we start as a cell or the seed, and then obviously we become who we are, or we grow and develop. We have the fruits or the tree, the leaf. But all this is because there's an exchange of material that keeps going in cycle. So we're never disconnected from our world. We're always this product from our world. And I always say that, like, our relationship with the planet needs to change, not because it's our responsibility to save it, but it's our understanding that we are a product of it. And if we trash it, then we end up trashing ourselves. So it's for our own best interest to find this good reciprocity, because we're constantly in exchange and participating, and the planet is just there for our own benefit as we are to the planet itself. Um, the adding children, there's one thing, because there's, with quantum, and there's a lot of, we don't know. We talked about how there's a lot of unknowns about the future, but I do believe that the best that we can do for the children is to give them the skills to deal with the unexpected, with the unknown. I think that that's where we have control. So what would you say, what are the skills? I mean, you mentioned some of the computer skills, but what are the skills that you would recommend to a young audience that is looking to face the future?
So, I mean, I think one thing, again, the skill they need to learn is beyond this, all this technology aspects, right? It's the human relationships between each other, because the basic, the fundamental things of how we interact with each other, the respect to, to your teachers, from whom we learn, that aspect of it, and then keep on learning, never giving up, because you're all, you like, for example, I mean, now at my age, I mean, when I started working on space, I just realized how little I know, that there is no end to learning, right? So you have to keep on moving forward, keep on learning, never giving up, right? And just keep moving forward, keep on learning, and learning will open up your mind. Learning, because not learning only about yourself, but learning about globally, about other cultures, everything. We all work together. So I think that's a very key message, that you have a general knowledge of what's happening in the world. You have a broader knowledge, and that humans, at the end of the day, humans have to work together. This technology will keep on changing. Every 6 months, we have a new technology, but humans are still the same, right? So we have to work together, be resilient, and keep on learning, and have a purpose. Very important. You need to have a purpose, that why, whatever I want to become, why, and have to give it back. Yes.
I compare purpose to tension. Tension is the thing that keeps you up, or even the like a tree. The tree has to have enough tension to be able to stand up, but too much tension is not good either. Because if there's too much tension, then it won't move with the wind, and it will break too easy. You need to have enough tension to know where you're going, but also you need to be agile so that you can adapt with the unexpected. And it's, I mean, the being resilient really comes from that, is having this movement forward, but at the same time, every time that there's an obstacle, you figure out. And I think more and more, as you said, we're coming together, and we understand that for the next step, we're gonna have to come together. I mean, all the people that are working together to solve these big issues, and I can only imagine at IBM all of this pool of mind. And when I think of the future, I think of a time when there's going to be 16 billion minds working on trying to figure out new places, and I get so excited. Naeem, if people want to learn more, if they want to maybe apply at IBM, they want to connect with you. I know you're on LinkedIn, you're on Twitter, but is IBM, like, where would they need to go if they want to learn more about your work and IBM?
So on IBM, I mean, of course, you can connect with me anytime with LinkedIn or Twitter. But on IBM, we have ibm.com/industry/space. So we have our official IBM Space page, and you can see all the work we are doing. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Naeem, for taking the time to share with us your space journey, your space wisdom. Actually, just describe the space, just your journey, your wisdom, and then the work that you do. And I'm looking forward to see where you go, where your children go, where IBM goes, and all these amazing innovations that are around the corner and beyond the street. I think that there's a lot of amazing things that are coming. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Really appreciate it.